Okay.
That's
Okay, good morning, class. Yeah, today we are going to discuss the course is Introduction to Social Anthropology. And you know, the anthropology is an infinity subject. It's interested in when, how does human come into existence. We are interested in the origin of human being, and this course has a lot of definition. You know, different definition from different scholars, coming from different perspective. Now we are going to look at some of the definition of anthropology. Now we look at it from this perspective of anthropology as the science, as this anthropology defined as anthropology as the study of human race, especially the origin. We are interested in the origin of the human race, the origin of the human race, the development of the human race, the customs and the belief. That means we are interested in the present and the past historical background of human being. Now, anthropology by definition is a discipline of infinite curiosity. Curiosity, what kind of curiosity? Curiosity about human existence, curiosity about human being, curiosity about how the human being came into existence. The word anthropology is derived from a Greek word, and a Greek word, anthropos, meaning man or human, and the term logia or logos means science. Therefore, anthropology is the study of humanity, because it is a collection of science and human being, science and man. And some people said it is the science of the origin of man, because we are interested in the origin of man. How did man comes into existence? Now, how did man comes into existence? That is the origin. Now we are interested in looking at when, how, and the existence of woman. We are also interested in the development of human being. Now, the development process of human being. We are also interested in the customs and belief systems of the human being. Now, anthropology, just like we said, has some sub-discipline. So let's look at sub-disciplines of anthropology. The sub-discipline of anthropology is into four. Now, the first one is the physical anthropology. Now, the physical anthropology seeks to answer certain distinctive set of questions about humanity. Now, what are those distinctive set of questions about humanity? We are interested in the emergence of human, the evolution of human. Now, that means the origin, the development, and the customs of human being, and other major areas of specialization in anthropology. We are interested in human variation. What makes human being different? What is the variation among humans? And we are also interested in the construction of the early human being, the bones, and anything that has to do with the evolution of human being. Then the archaeological perspective talks about is the systematic study of materials. We are not only talking about systematic study of materials, but also talking about the remains of the earliest human culture. Now, the remains of the earliest culture. That is, the subfield of anthropology is interested in that perspective. Yes, this helps us to construct the lives, ways of such earliest human population who lives in the past. Now, the subfield of anthropology, also helps us to trace cultural changes. Now, what has been the trend? What has been the trend of changes from the earliest human being to the present human being? You know, there are formation of changes from the earliest to the present human being. Then we are also able to trace the we also look at the cultural changes that have taken place in human culture and the possible explanation of these changes. Okay, if we are like this, what happened? What were the conditions? What were the criteria for all this? So we are also interested in these trends of changes, in this variation in human being. So archaeological subfield of anthropology deals with the study of the remains and the cultural changes of the earliest humans. Then we will talk about the social or the cultural aspect of it. Now, the social or the cultural aspect of anthropology deals with humans as a cultural being. Now remember we said every human is cultural, is a cultural being because human being is unique. Every human being has culture, and culture makes us unique from other animals. Besides, we are social animals, and as social animals there are other cultural trends that make us unique about being social animals. Now the cultural social anthropology studies human culture, human being, human as a cultural being. That is the phenomenon of culture in human society. And we said every human society has culture. Now culture has to do with the total ways of life of the people, their customs, their traditions, their norms, their values, the knowledge, the folklores and others. So the American anthropology school emphasize cultural anthropology, while the British emphasize on social. You know, now the America is interested in culture, while the British is interested in the anthropological perspective of anthropology. Now we have the anthropological linguistics, the anthropological linguistics examines the nature of language in human society. Now when we talk about language, you know, language is the means of communication of the culture. It's a vehicle for the communication of culture. Now the linguistics anthropology comprises of historical linguistics and social linguistics. The anthropological linguistics studies both languages in the present, in the past, and the contemporary society. That means we are interested in the study of languages of the past and the contemporary human society. That means we are interested in the connection between the past language and the present language in human society. Now the linguist with anthropological background utilizes the approach to rigorous and highly technical techniques of constructing language. Now somebody will said, a lot of us we said in the class that why is this anthropology interested? Why are we interested in studying anthropology? Now let's look at the uniqueness, the importance of anthropology as an academic field of study. Number one, the display is both biological and social science. That means the discipline is both biological and social science. Anthropology from its earliest orientation, both biological and social in nature. The discipline examines the analysis of human species from the perspective of both biological being and the cultural being. You know, at born we are biological, then we go through the process of socialization, which makes us cultural and social being. Now we are social being because we interact, we socialize, and we are cultural being because we have culture, and we said the total way of life of the people. Then another one is the time dimension of anthropology. This has to do with the total time that mankind has existed on the surface of the earth. Now anthropology, remember we said anthropology is interested in the origin of man, so we are also interested in the existence of mankind on the surface of the earth. So the display has time dimension of human species from the earliest period to the living organism. Now we are checking the trend of evolution, the evolution of human being. Then another one is it is a comparative science. Now anthropology, the approach in social anthropology in explaining phenomena of human societies most times is to compare one society or culture or population with another. That means we compare what is happening in society 1 and society 2, what is happening in society A and society B. We are interested in the comparison of their culture and their population. So we are interested in looking at these variations, these differences that existed between one science and the other. Now let's look at the historical origin of anthropology as a science. Now the discipline of anthropology develops due to interest and speculation about human origin and development. The earliest known anthropologists were the Greek philosophers and historians. You can talk about Herodotus, who lives in 19 BC, and other. And most of these anthropologists are travelers and writers who visited different parts of the world. They are writers, they are travelers who visited part of the world. Now, the collapse of the Roman Empire has impact on the origin of anthropology. Now, significant influence the desire to study man and his culture. This ushered the period of theological enlightenment. Now, remember, those of you that did so, we talked about the stages by Auguste Comte: theological, metaphysical, and scientific. You know, at the theological stage, everything is attributed to God. Everything that happens in human society is God. In which now, so this period, ushering the period of theological enlightenment, in which scholars like Augustine of Hippo, Saint Augustine of Hippo, ushering the universality that created, that the universe, that the world was created by omnipotent God, which is uninstructable. Now, you can't direct him. It's uninstructable. He does it at his own will. So for him, the world, the universe was created by omnipotent God, who is uninstructable. Then comes the other segment part of it is the intro during the medieval era. Now, the social environment provoked debate among scholars on the natures and problem of human society. This period, interested scholars were more on providing solution to social problems in the society, so as to understand the nature of man rather than looking at the creator as the source of knowledge. Understanding the nature of man rather than looking at as the source of nature. Now, another more significant impact to the development of anthropology is the fall of the Eastern Roman wars. This led to the influx of refugees, that means displaced people, to Western Europe. Now, the refugees carried along with them the writing of classical philosophers, and it was within the same time that Gutenberg invited the writing press. That further increased the spread of knowledge in human society. Now, more before the beginning of the 18th century AD, society that did not share fundamental cultural values with Europe were labeled as savage, barbaric, uncivilized, and primitive because they don't have connections with other cultures. Now, let's look at, now, since the beginning of this class, we are interested in looking at anthropology, and we said it's the science of what? The science of man, the science of humanity, the science that is interested in studying humanity, and we make emphasis, almost all our emphasis centered on culture. Now, let's look at culture. Now, if we continue to look at definition of culture from different perspectives, we would know that scholars from different perspectives look at culture from their own angle. Now, to a layman on the street, we said that culture is the total way of life of the people. Now, some said culture is the creation of man to satisfy his want. The man creates culture to satisfy his want. Now, let's look at a more comprehensive definition put forward by Edward Tylor. Edward Tylor gave a more comprehensive definition about culture, and he said that culture, he defines culture as the complex whole, which include knowledge, belief, art, laws, morals, customs, and any other capabilities and habits required by a man as a member of a society. Now, we are interested, he's interested in this concept. He says it's a complex whole. Now, this complex whole includes knowledge, includes your belief systems, the arts, the laws, the morals, the customs, and any other capabilities and habits required by man as member of the society. Now, what are the features or what are the characteristics of culture in human society? Culture should be able to successfully deal with its basic problems. Remember we said that culture is a creation of man to satisfy his want. So now culture should be able to successfully deal with the basic problem of the society. Basic problems. Now it must provide for a production and distribution of goods and services considered necessary for life. Culture is a total way of life of people. Culture is a creation of man to satisfy his want. Now, also provides a biological continuity through the production of each member. Now, when we're talking about production of each member, we are talking about recreation. We are talking about procreation, giving back to the young ones. Now, for there to be continuity in culture, there must be procreation, giving birth to continue. Now, the characteristics of culture include, now culture must be shared. Culture as an aspect of humanity is shared. That is because it serves as a means for group. It serves as a means of group identity and collectivity. Now, it is shared. Now, another one is that culture is learned. Culture as a concept is learned rather by biological inherited. For example, Litton 1934 argues that culture is a concept of humanity's social heredity. So it has to be learned. You learn culture. Culture is shared. Culture is learned. Now another one is that culture is based on symbols. Now, List White, like another anthropology, observes that all human behavior is associated with symbols, change over time, and this symbol change over time. Now, every culture has symbols, identity that identify them as member of this. Then another one is that culture is dynamic. Now, the component of human culture changes over time. Now, the culture keeps changes over time. Now, it goes on and on and on and on. Now, the culture of the past and the culture of the present are not the same, because it is dynamic. It changes over time. Now, let's look at some concepts that are related, some concepts of culture. Another one is culture relativisms. Now, it's a term that was first proposed by the British anthropology, Franz Boas. Now, the concept was coined in reactions to the growth criticism of functionalist anthropology like Boas on evolutionary theory about human culture. Now, let's look at this. Now, we are looking at language and culture. What is the communication? What is the link between language and culture? Remember, we said language is a vehicle. Language is a vehicle of culture. Now, the realization of central importance of language in human society led inevitably to the speculation about how human might develop in the first place. The origin and development of language in human society, as well as the divergence of human language, can be traced back to 1,000 years. Now, over the years, anthropology are curious and concerned on the question of how language came into existence and how long humans have spoken language. Now, we're talking about the existence and the period. Now, all speculation about the origin of language have been centered on the question of how natural selection have been favored the opening of human culture. Also, on the set of theoreticians of grammar suggest that there may be a language acquisition device in the brain eminent to human being as core system that are as core systems, which is similar to those of chimpanzee, gorilla, and other. Now, let's look at what is the connection, what is the relationship between anthropology and other social science. Now, from historical development, anthropology study non-Western culture. Now, non-Western culture, that means primitive culture, classical culture, simple society, primitive society, classical society, and that we are more from often isolated in the day-to-day interaction with other industrial society. Now, anthropology is interested in studying simple, primitive, and uncivilized society or non-Western society. Now, another one is that the difference between both discipline. Now, both discipline, that means sociology, anthropology, and the rest on their philosophical orientation. Now, we're interested in looking at their philosophical orientation. Anthropology studies culture. That is, the subject matter is culture. And sociology is interested in the subject matter. The subject matter of sociology is society. Anthropology is interested in culture, while sociology is interested in. Then another thing that we need to look at is their methodological approach. Now, we look at the philosophical orientation, then we look at their methodological approach. Now, anthropology is concerned with descriptive analysis of human group. Descriptive analysis of human group. Now, anthropology is a comparative discipline and more wider in scope than sociology. You see, now there is also variation in scope. Now, coverage. Anthropology is wider in coverage than sociology. This involves the network of pattern of interaction in human society. Remember, anthropology is interested in culture and is interested in, and sociology is interested in human society. Now, what is their connection? What is their relationship? What are the similarities? Now, both disciplines adopt similar approaches in their research techniques. In other words, they employ similar research methods of investigation. This includes observations. They make observation. All of them make observation. All of them employ participant observation. All of them employ key in-depth interview. All of them employ key format interview, and all of them also use focus group discussion. So you see similarity in research, similarity in research techniques. Another one is that both study the same general subject, that is man, social behavior. Now, all of them, culture of man in society. So we are, the sociology and anthropology is interested in man social behavior, Now, this is derived from their different theoretical orientation or approaches. This anthropology and the sociology adopt evolutionary theory, functional theory, and other theories. That means they have all these theories are interested in studying human behavior. Then another one is that both disciplines are interested in the social life of human group, the social life of human groups. This means that both conceptualize society, both looks at society the same way, in the same manner. Now, they look at society as a group, human group, the social life of human group. Their concern is to understand how orderliness is ensured in human society. So those are what we look at. So in the next class, we'll also look at what is the connection between anthropology and psychology, or anthropology and other disciplines that are in social science. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's see next week.